Most people think fishing is just tossing a net into the water and waiting. But out here, a single pull can drag up an entire ocean, and in the worst moments, that same net can almost drag the boat under with it. Because beneath the surface, there are times when tens of thousands of fish move as one living force, so dense and powerful that when crews lock onto them, what follows isn't a calm harvest. It's a full-scale battle between man, machine, and something that looks more like a silver storm than a school of fish. And in just minutes, the sea can explode into chaos as massive nets stretch across hundreds of meters begin tightening, trapping everything inside, while the surface starts boiling as fish slam against each other, trying to escape, creating waves, flashes, and vibrations that can be felt through the hull itself. And then comes the moment crews wait forth, the hull and hydraulic winches scream under pressure, and the net rises slowly, possibly heavy, until suddenly it breaks the surface, and what pours out doesn't even look real. Because instead of a few fish, it's a cascading flood of shimmering bodies, like liquid metal spilling onto the deck. Thousands upon thousands at once, each reflecting sunlight so intensely it blinds the eyes, turning the entire scene into a moving mirror of chaos. And in some of these moments, a single haul can reach 30, 40, even 60 tons of fish, enough weight to rival fully loaded trucks, all brought up in a matter of minutes. And yet even that is just the beginning, because across the world, from freezing northern seas to tropical waters glowing at night, fishermen are constantly chasing these impossible moments, relying on advanced sonar systems that scan deep below the surface to detect massive schools stretching for hundreds of meters, sometimes even a full kilometer long, revealing targets so large they look like underwater continents, and once located, there's no hesitation. Nets are deployed instantly, surrounding entire schools in a single sweeping motion, leaving no escape. While the crew rushes into position, knowing that timing is everything, because one mistake, one delay, and the entire catch could vanish back into the depths. But when everything aligns perfectly, what follows is beyond anything most people have ever seen, because the ocean doesn't give up its resources quietly. It erupts, it thrashes, it resists with raw force. And as the net tightens, the pressure inside builds to unbelievable levels. Fish compressing into a dense, living mass that can actually push back against the ropes, stretching them to their limits, sometimes even tearing through weaker sections, forcing crews to react instantly, pulling harder, faster, shouting over the roar of engines and crashing water, while the boat itself begins to tilt slightly under the shifting weight, reminding everyone on board just how powerful this moment really is. And then finally, as the net reaches the deck and opens, the true scale is revealed, because what spills out isn't just a catch. It's an overwhelming surge of life, covering every inch of the deck, flapping, sliding, piling on top of each other in a chaotic flood that demands immediate action. Because in this world, seconds matter, and every delay means lost value. Lost freshness, lost profit, so crews dive straight into the madness, sorting, lifting, transferring nonstop in a perfectly coordinated rhythm that has to keep up with the sheer volume pouring in. And this is the reality most people never see, the side of fishing that's not calm or peaceful, but intense, unpredictable, sometimes even dangerous, where every trip offshore is a gamble. Because no one truly knows what's waiting below, whether it's a record-breaking haul that could change everything, or a force so strong it pushes both crew and vessel to their absolute limits. And that's exactly why these moments are so incredible. Because when the ocean finally reveals what it's been hiding, it doesn't do it quietly. It unleashes it all at once, in scenes so massive, so fast, and so overwhelming. They almost don't look real. And just when it feels like that overwhelming surge is already at its peak, the ocean has a way of pushing things even further. Because there are moments when the catch doesn't just pour out, it explodes onto the deck with such force that crews have to step back for a split second just to avoid being knocked off balance, as waves of fish slam down in thick layers, their combined weight thudding against the metal floor like falling cargo. And in those seconds, the noise alone becomes deafening, a mix of engines roaring, water crashing, and thousands of bodies flapping at once, creating a chaotic rhythm that feels more like a storm than a harvest. And yet no one stops, because this is exactly what they came for, The kind of moment that can make an entire trip worth it in just a few minutes, but also the kind that can spiral out of control if not handled perfectly. Because when you're dealing with tens of tons of moving weight, even a small misstep can turn dangerous fast. Nets can snap, equipment can jam, and the sheer pressure of the catch can shift suddenly, forcing everyone on board to react instantly or risk losing everything. And sometimes, even with all the technology and experience, things still don't go as planned, because the ocean doesn't follow rules. And there are times when what gets pulled up isn't just a massive haul, but something completely unexpected, something far bigger, far stronger. Hiding within the swarm, waiting until the last second to reveal itself, and that's when the situation changes completely, because instead of a controlled operation, it becomes a struggle. A test of strength between human and creature, where lines tighten, rods bend, and the entire boat feels the pull of something alive and fighting back with everything it has, dragging, resisting, refusing to be brought to the surface. And in those moments, every second stretches out, because losing that catch isn't just disappointing, it can mean losing hours of work, fuel, and opportunity. So the crew pushes harder, coordinating every movement, adjusting tension, holding steady even as the force from below threatens to undo everything. And when they finally manage to bring it up, breaking through the surface in a violent splash, the reveal is always worth it, because it's never just about size. It's about the sheer intensity of the encounter. The reminder that beneath the calm surface lies a world that is still wild, still untamed, still capable of surprising even the most seasoned fishermen. And that's what keeps them coming back. Trip after trip, chasing that next unbelievable moment. Because out here, no two hauls are ever the same. One day it's a net so full it nearly tears apart. The next, it's a sudden strike from a powerful predator that turns a routine catch into a full-blown battle. And then there are nights when the ocean transforms entirely. When darkness falls and fleets switch on massive arrays of lights that pierce through the black water, turning the sea into a glowing field that attracts everything beneath, and slowly, almost silently at first, shadows begin to gather below the surface, forming dense, shifting shapes that grow larger and larger until the signal is clear another opportunity, another chance at pulling up something extraordinary, and once again, the process begins, nets drop, lines tighten. Machines roar to life, and within minutes, the quiet night erupts into controlled chaos as yet another wave of life is brought up from the depths, repeating the cycle that never really stops, because in this world there's no pause, no slow moment. Just an ongoing race against time, against nature, and against the limits of what both humans and machines can handle. And that's why what you're about to see isn't just fishing. It's something far more intense, far more massive, and far more unbelievable than anyone standing safely on land could ever imagine. What makes all of this even more unbelievable is that none of it happens by luck. Because behind every massive haul is a level of precision and technology that turns the ocean into a high-stakes hunting ground, where crews rely on advanced sonar systems, scanning hundreds of meters below the surface, constantly searching for dense signals that indicate something extraordinary. And when those signals appear, they don't just represent fish, they represent opportunity on a massive scale. Sometimes revealing schools so large they stretch across entire sections of the sea like moving continents. And in those moments, everything changes instantly. Right. Because the crew knows they've only got one chance to get it right, so within seconds, commands are shouted. Engines shift direction, and the entire vessel moves into position with practiced accuracy, preparing to deploy nets that can extend for hundreds of meters. Designed not just to catch fish, but to surround and contain an entire moving mass, and as these nets are released into the water, they sink and expand, forming a massive invisible barrier beneath the surface, slowly closing in from all sides. And at first, everything seems calm. Almost calm. But that silence never lasts long, because as the net tightens, the reaction begins, and suddenly the water starts to tremble. Ripples forming, then building, till the surface erupts into violent motion as thousands, sometimes millions of fish realize they're trapped. Surging in every direction at once, creating a churning, flashing storm of movement that can be seen from far above, especially when sunlight hits their scales and turns the entire area into a shimmering field of silver. And this is the moment where timing becomes everything. Because if the net isn't closed fast enough, the entire school can break through a weak point and vanish in seconds. But if it's done perfectly, the result is almost unbelievable. Because what was once a free-moving ocean current of life is now compressed into a dense, pulsing mass, held together by ropes and pressure alone. And then comes the hardest part, bringing it all up. Because hauling in something that weighs tens of tons isn't just about strength, it's about coordination, machinery, and endurance as massive hydraulic winches kick into full power, pulling slowly but relentlessly while every crew member takes position, ready for what's coming next. And as the net begins to rise, the tension becomes visible, ropes stretching tight, water pouring off in heavy streams, and the shape beneath the surface growing clearer and larger with every second, until finally it breaks through, and once again, the ocean gives up its hidden mass in one overwhelming surge. Fish pouring out in numbers so large they completely cover the deck, forcing the crew into immediate action, because there's no pause, no moment to admire the catch, only the constant need to move sort and store before the next haul begins. And in some of the most advanced operations, this entire process doesn't even rely solely on human effort anymore, because powerful automated systems take over, conveyor belts running non-stop, suction systems activating to literally vacuum fish straight from the net onto the deck, creating a continuous flow that never slows down, allowing vessels to process incredible volumes in record time. And in places like the cold waters of the north, where species like pollock and cod dominate, this efficiency is pushed to the extreme, with single hauls reaching 20 to 30 tons and being repeated over and over again, turning each trip into a relentless cycle of deployment, capture, and processing that can last for hours without a break. And yet not every method relies on massive machinery, because in other parts of the world a completely different kind of skill takes over, where fishermen depend on timing, rhythm, and coordination instead of size and power, lining up along the edges of smaller boats, casting and pulling lines in perfect synchronization, bringing fish aboard one after another in rapid succession, creating a fast-paced flow that looks almost effortless but requires incredible precision to maintain. And whether it's high-tech industrial fleets or traditional methods passed down through generations, the goal remains the same: to outmaneuver the ocean, to capture something vast and fleeting before it disappears again into the depths. And that's what makes these moments so intense. Because every successful haul is the result of perfect timing, calculated risk, and the ability to react instantly to whatever the ocean decides to reveal. And as you're about to see, this is only the beginning. Because beyond these massive net hauls lies an entirely different level of challenge, where instead of capturing entire schools, fishermen come face to face with individual giants capable of turning the hunt into a battle. And just when it seems like these massive net hauls are already the peak of efficiency, the reality is that this entire operation never truly slows down. Because once a single catch is secured, processed, and stored, the crew doesn't celebrate, they reset immediately, scanning the ocean again, searching for the next signal, the next massive movement beneath the surface. Because in this industry, every minute matters. And missing even one opportunity can mean losing tons of potential catch. So the cycle repeats with relentless precision, sonar sweeping back and forth, detecting new clusters forming in the depths, sometimes appearing as thick clouds stretching across hundreds of meters, shifting constantly as the fish move together in perfect synchronization. And when one of these massive formations is located, the tension on board rises instantly because everyone knows what's coming next. Another high-speed operation where timing, coordination, and execution must align perfectly, and within moments the vessel adjusts its position, circling strategically, while the net is deployed once again, expanding outward into the water like a giant trap designed to close in from every direction. And as it sinks deeper, surrounding the school, there's a brief moment of silence before everything erupts, because the fish begin to react. First subtly, then violently, creating ripples that quickly turn into waves, till the surface itself starts to churn with energy, flashing silver as thousands of bodies twist and collide. And from above, it looks almost unreal, like the ocean itself has come alive, moving, pulsing, resisting capture with everything it has, and yet the net keeps tightening, slowly reducing the space, compressing the entire mass into a smaller and denser formation, increasing the pressure with every second. And this is where the real challenge begins. Because the heavier the catch becomes, the greater the strain on every part of the system. Ropes pull tight under immense tension. Metal structures creak under load, and the winches must work harder than ever, drawing in something that can weigh as much as multiple trucks combined, and as the net rises, dragging this living mass toward the surface. The sheer force of it becomes visible, water cascading off in torrents, the shape beneath growing darker and denser, until finally it breaks through, unleashing another overwhelming flood onto the deck. Fish pouring out so fast and in such volume that it becomes impossible to count, covering every available space in seconds. And immediately, the crew moves in, because hesitation isn't an option, sorting, lifting, transferring in a continuous flow that must match the speed of the catch itself, and in some of the most advanced fleets. This process reaches another level entirely, where automation takes over to handle the scale. With powerful suction systems lowering directly into the net, pulling fish upward in a continuous stream, like an underwater vacuum capable of moving entire schools in minutes, sending them through pipes and onto conveyor systems that distribute them across the deck for rapid processing, reducing manual effort while dramatically increasing output. And in regions where fishing is pushed to industrial extremes, this method allows vessels to bring in hundreds of tons in a single night, transforming the ocean into a source of near-constant production, especially under the cover of darkness, when massive arrays of lights are switched on, illuminating the water with an almost artificial glow that attracts fish from all directions, creating dense concentrations directly beneath the vessel. And as more and more gather, drawn by the light, the opportunity grows until the moment is right, and once again, nets are deployed, enclosing the entire swarm in one decisive move. And within minutes, the quiet night is shattered by the sound of machinery and movement, as yet another enormous catch is brought to the surface, repeating a cycle that feels endless. And yet, despite all this technology, all this scale, and all this control, there are still moments when the ocean pushes back, when something unexpected enters the net. Something stronger, faster, or simply too large to handle easily, turning what should have been a routine operation into something far more intense. Because beyond these massive schools lies another side of fishing entirely. It's one where instead of overwhelming numbers, it's about facing individual giants that refuse to be captured without a fight. And those encounters are where things truly start to get out of control. While massive nets and industrial systems can pull in entire schools by the ton, there's a completely different side of fishing that no machine can fully control, because sometimes, instead of thousands of small fish, what rises from the depths is a single creature so powerful that it turns the entire operation into a fight for control. And in those moments, everything changes instantly, because this is no longer about speed or volume. It's about strength, endurance, and survival. And it usually starts without warning, when a line suddenly goes tight, not with the steady pull of a normal catch, but with a violent force that jerks equipment, bends rods, and sends a shock through the entire boat, signaling that something massive has taken the bait. And within seconds, the crew knows this isn't ordinary, because whatever is on the other end isn't just resisting, it's fighting back with full power, diving deep, pulling hard, and sometimes even dragging the vessel itself across the water, forcing everyone on board to react immediately, grabbing lines, adjusting tension, and working together to keep control. Because losing grip for even a moment could mean snapping the line or losing the catch entirely, and in extreme cases, these creatures don't just pull, they run, surging forward with such force that small boats can be dragged hundreds of meters across the sea, engines struggling to compensate as the crew holds on, trying to wear the fish down without letting it escape. And this battle can last not seconds, but minutes, sometimes even longer, with each side pushing to its limit. The fish using its raw power and instinct, the crew relying on coordination and experience, slowly gaining ground inch by inch, until finally, the moment comes when the surface breaks and the true scale of the creature is revealed. And it's in that instant that everything feels worth it, because what emerges isn't just large, it's unbelievable. Massive tuna weighing hundreds of pounds, swordfish stretching close to 10 feet, or deep-sea giants rarely seen by human eyes. Each one representing not just a catch, but a victory over something wild and untamed. And yet, even these encounters are only part of the story, because in some rare moments, the ocean reveals creatures so unusual that they seem almost unreal. Like elongated oarfish stretching over 15 feet in length, rising from depths where sunlight never reaches, surprising entire crews who never expected to see something like that near the surface, turning an ordinary trip into something unforgettable. And then there are the heavyweights of the cold waters. Creatures like massive halibut or giant crabs, so large and powerful that bringing them aboard requires not just effort but teamwork, multiple crew members pulling together, lifting, securing, and controlling something that can weigh as much as a full-grown person or more. And in these situations, every movement has to be precise, because one mistake can result in injury, lost equipment, or a missed opportunity that may never come again. And beyond individual giants, there are also moments when nature itself creates events so massive that they transform entire coastlines into feeding frenzies. Like when billions of sardines migrate together in one of the largest natural phenomena on Earth, forming dense, moving walls of fish that stretch for miles, attracting predators from every direction, dolphins slicing through the water, sharks circling below, seabirds diving from above, turning the ocean into a chaotic battlefield where survival happens in real time. Right in the middle of it all, fishing vessels move in, taking advantage of the moment, deploying nets into this living storm, capturing huge volumes in minutes as the entire ecosystem erupts around them, creating scenes so intense they feel almost unreal. And yet, even with all these incredible moments, what truly defines this world is the relentless effort behind every catch. Because whether it's battling a giant fish or hauling in a net weighing tens of tons, the work never stops. Crews pushing through exhaustion, operating for long hours, sometimes up to 18 hours straight, repeating the same physically demanding tasks over and over again, hauling, sorting, lifting, resetting, all while the ocean continues to shift unpredictably around them. And it's this combination of scale, danger, and non-stop intensity that makes these moments so extraordinary. Because behind every unbelievable catch is a level of effort and risk that most people will never experience. And as incredible as everything so far has been, the most intense moments are still ahead. Because when pressure, scale, and unpredictability all collide at once, that's when fishing transforms into something truly extreme. And when all of these elements collide at the same time, massive scale, unpredictable conditions, and raw physical limits, that's when fishing stops looking like a job and starts looking like controlled chaos. Because there are moments when everything on board is pushed to the edge, when nets come up so heavy that the entire vessel begins to lean under the shifting weight, forcing the crew to react instantly, redistributing load, adjusting lines, doing whatever it takes to keep balance, while thousands upon thousands of fish surge inside the net like a living force trying to break free. And in those seconds, the line between success and disaster becomes incredibly thin. Because if the net tears or the weight shifts too suddenly, everything can be lost in an instant, sending tons of fish back into the ocean and leaving behind nothing but exhaustion and wasted effort. And yet, even in those high-risk moments, the crew doesn't hesitate, because this is the reality they're trained for. Pulling harder, faster, working in perfect coordination despite the noise, the pressure, and the constant movement beneath their feet. And just when the net finally clears the surface, instead of relief, there's another surge of intensity, because what follows is an overwhelming flood that covers the deck in seconds. Fish piling up so quickly that it becomes a race against time to keep up, hands moving non-stop. Machinery running at full capacity, every second counted as the catch is sorted and transferred before the next operation begins. And in some cases, the scale becomes almost unbelievable. With hulls so large they completely fill storage holds in a single cycle, forcing crews to immediately prepare for the next deployment without even a moment to rest. Because out here, momentum is everything, and stopping means losing opportunity. And then there are the moments that happen far from the massive industrial fleets, closer to shore, where there's no advanced machinery, no automated systems. Just pure human effort against the weight of the ocean, where teams of fishermen stand shoulder to shoulder, gripping thick ropes with bare hands, pulling in unison against nets that grow heavier with every meter. Their movements synchronized by rhythm and experience, step by step dragging something massive toward land. Waves crashing against them, soaking their bodies, but no one lets go, because they can feel the weight, they know what's coming. And when the net finally emerges from the water, it reveals a dense, writhing mass of fish packed so tightly that it looks almost solid. A reward earned entirely through endurance and coordination, and even then, the work doesn't stop, because the moment the catch is secured, sorting begins immediately, hands moving quickly to separate, organize, and preserve, ensuring that nothing is wasted, because every fish represents value, effort, and survival, and in other parts of the world. This same intensity plays out under completely different conditions. In darkness, in storms, in freezing temperatures, where crews operate through rain and rough seas, hauling up heavy traps filled with crabs or dredges loaded with shellfish, metal chains grinding against the ocean floor before being pulled back up with immense force, bringing with them hundreds, sometimes thousands of creatures at once, pouring onto the deck in chaotic piles that demand instant attention. And despite the harsh conditions, the cold, the exhaustion, the relentless pace, the work continues without pause, because the window of opportunity is always limited, and every moment counts. And then there are the truly rare encounters, the ones that push even experienced fishermen into unfamiliar territory. When something enormous appears unexpectedly, something far beyond the usual catch, like a giant squid weighing hundreds of pounds or a deep-sea creature rarely seen near the surface, forcing the crew to slow down, to shift from speed to caution, carefully maneuvering equipment, using every bit of skill to bring it aboard without losing control. Because in those moments, it's no longer just about harvesting. It's about handling something unknown, something powerful. Yes. Something that reminds everyone on board just how vast and mysterious the ocean still is. And that's what makes this world so intense. Because no matter how advanced the technology becomes, no matter how experienced the crew is, the ocean always has the final say. Always holding back something unexpected, something bigger, something more challenging than the last. And as the pressure builds, as the hulls grow heavier, and as the stakes get higher, it becomes clear that the most extreme moments aren't just about what's caught, but about how far people are willing to push themselves to capture it. And that's where the true climax begins, where exhaustion, risk, and reward all collide in ways that turn every second into a test of limits. As the scale of fishing continues to expand across the world, what makes it even more fascinating is how completely different methods can achieve the same overwhelming result. Because while some fleets rely on massive industrial systems that dominate entire sections of the ocean, others operate with precision timing and coordination so sharp that they can trap thousands of fish in just minutes without the need for enormous machinery. And one of the most intense examples of this happens when multiple boats work together as a single unit, moving in perfect synchronization to surround a fast-moving school, carefully positioning themselves at just the right angles before deploying a circular net that slowly tightens from every side, reducing the space until the fish are compressed into a dense, swirling mass at the center, and from above, the scene looks almost unreal, like a living whirlpool made entirely of silver bodies flashing under the sunlight, constantly shifting and colliding as they try to escape. But with every second, the opening grows smaller. The pressure increases, and the chance of escape disappears completely. And once the moment is right, the crews move in fast, using large scoop nets or cranes to lift massive batches all at once, each swing bringing up dozens of fish, repeating over and over in a rapid, almost mechanical rhythm that fills the hold in record time. And in some operations, this entire process happens so efficiently that a full load can be secured before the fish even have time to settle. turning what would seem like a chaotic situation into something highly controlled and optimized for speed. And yet, in other regions, technology takes this efficiency even further, introducing systems that eliminate manual handling almost entirely, where instead of lifting fish in batches, powerful suction tubes are lowered directly into the concentrated school, creating a continuous flow that pulls fish upward like a liquid stream, transporting them through pipes and onto the vessel in a steady, uninterrupted current, allowing crews to harvest enormous quantities without slowing down, and watching this process unfold feels almost surreal, because it blurs the line between natural movement and industrial precision, transforming the ocean into something that behaves more like a production system than a wild environment, especially during nighttime operations. When entire fleets illuminate the sea with rows of powerful lights, turning the dark water into a glowing expanse that attracts fish from all directions, and as more and more gather beneath the surface, drawn by the brightness, the density builds until the water itself seems alive, shifting with movement. And, at the perfect moment, nets are deployed once again, enclosing everything in one decisive action, creating another opportunity for a massive haul that can be completed in just minutes. And despite all this advancement, there are still places where fishing remains rooted in tradition, where instead of machines and automation, everything depends on human rhythm and coordination. With fishermen lining up along the edges of boats, casting lines into the water and pulling them back in rapid succession, one after another, in a synchronized motion that allows them to bring in fish continuously without pause, creating a flow that feels almost hypnotic in its consistency. And even though each individual catch may be smaller compared to industrial operations, the speed and efficiency of the method allow them to achieve impressive totals over time, proving that scale isn't always about size, but about how effectively each movement is executed, and in coastal regions. Similar coordination can be seen on an even more physical level, where teams of fishermen stand in the water or along the shore, pulling massive nets by hand, step by step, using nothing but strength and timing to drag in catches that can weigh hundreds of kilograms, their movements guided by experience rather than technology. And when the net finally reaches land, revealing a dense collection of fish gathered inside, the result feels just as rewarding as any industrial haul, because every part of it was earned through effort and precision. And this contrast between high-tech systems, capable of handling hundreds of tons in traditional techniques, powered entirely by human strength, shows just how diverse and adaptable fishing has become across different parts of the world. And yet, regardless of the method used, the intensity never fades. Because whether it's machines operating at full capacity or people working in perfect unison, the goal is always the same: to capture as much as possible, as fast as possible, before the ocean shifts again and the opportunity disappears. And as these operations continue to push limits in speed, scale, and efficiency, they set the stage for the most extreme moments of all, where everything comes together under pressure, creating situations so intense that even the most experienced crews are pushed beyond what they thought possible. And just when it feels like these systems have reached peak efficiency, the real pressure begins when everything has to run continuously without a single mistake. Because at this level, it's no longer about one successful haul. It's about repeating that success over and over again under changing conditions. And that's where even the most advanced operations are pushed to their limits. Because the ocean doesn't stay still, currents shift, schools scatter, weather changes without warning. And what was a perfect setup just minutes ago can suddenly turn into a race against time, forcing crews to adapt instantly, recalculating positions, redeploying nets, and making split-second decisions that determine whether the next haul will succeed or fail. And in these moments, the entire vessel operates like a single organism, every crew member moving with purpose, every machine running in sync. Because hesitation isn't an option when dealing with something this fast and this unpredictable. And as soon as one catch is secured, the reset begins immediately. Nets are cleared, equipment is checked, sonar scans resume, all within minutes, because the window of opportunity is always closing. And missing it means losing not just fish, but fuel, time, and momentum. And in large-scale fleets, this intensity is multiplied across dozens, sometimes even hundreds of vessels working in the same region. each one scanning, tracking, and competing for the same moving targets beneath the surface. It's creating a massive coordinated effort that transforms entire sections of the ocean into high-activity zones where operations never truly stop, especially at night, when the sea becomes something entirely different. Illuminated by powerful lights that stretch across the horizon, making it look less like open water and more like a floating city. And beneath that glowing surface, massive schools gather in dense formations, drawn in by the light, creating perfect conditions for rapid high-volume harvesting, and once again, the nets are deployed. The systems activate, and within minutes, another surge of fish is brought aboard, repeating the cycle with almost mechanical precision. And yet, despite all this coordination and technology, the physical demands never disappear, because even with machines doing most of the heavy lifting, crews are still required to work non-stop, monitoring systems, adjusting loads, sorting catches, responding instantly to any issue that arises. And when something goes wrong, and it always does at some point, the situation escalates quickly because a jammed system, a tangled net, or a sudden shift in weight can disrupt the entire operation, forcing crews to step in manually, often under intense pressure and dangerous conditions. Working quickly to fix the problem before the opportunity slips away, and in those moments, experience becomes the most valuable tool of all. Because knowing how to react, how to adjust, and how to recover can mean the difference between saving a massive catch or losing everything in seconds. And this constant balance between control and chaos is what defines this level of fishing. Because no matter how advanced the systems become, the ocean always introduces an element of unpredictability that can't be fully controlled. And that unpredictability only increases as conditions become more extreme, when storms roll in, when waves grow larger, when visibility drops. And yet the work continues, because stopping isn't always an option. And crews push forward through rough seas and harsh weather, holding position, maintaining operations, determined to make the most of every possible moment. And it's in these conditions that the true intensity of this world becomes clear. Because it's not just about catching fish, it's about endurance, resilience, and the ability to keep going even when everything becomes more difficult, more dangerous, and more unpredictable. And as the pressure builds, as fatigue sets in, and as the scale of each operation continues to grow, it leads directly into the most extreme phase of all, where everything technology, human effort, and the raw power of the ocean collides at once, creating moments so intense that they push both people and machines beyond their limits. And just when it feels like the limits have already been pushed to the edge, this is where everything reaches its absolute peak. Because there are moments in fishing when scale, pressure, and unpredictability collide all at once, creating situations so intense that even the most experienced crews are forced into survival mode. And it usually begins with something deceptively simpler net that feels heavier than expected. A line that pulls harder than usual, or a signal on the sonar that looks just a little too dense to be normaland within seconds. That small difference turns into something massive, because as the net tightens or the line holds, the resistance grows rapidly, far beyond what the crew anticipated. And suddenly, what should have been a routine haul transforms into a full-scale struggle as ropes strain, winches push to maximum capacity. And the entire structure of the vessel begins to feel the load. And when the net finally starts to rise, it doesn't come up smoothly. It surges, jerks, and resists, as if the ocean itself is trying to pull it back down. And that's when the realization hits. This isn't just a big catch. This is something extreme. Something that could either become the biggest success of the trip or a complete loss in seconds. And as the net breaks the surface, the scale is revealed in a way that almost doesn't seem possible. Because instead of a controlled release, what comes out is an unstoppable torrent. Fish pouring out in such volume that the deck is instantly overwhelmed. Layers piling on top of each other faster than the crew can react, creating a moving mass that shifts, slides, and pushes with incredible force, forcing everyone to stay alert, to keep their footing, to work faster than ever before just to maintain control of the situation. And in some cases, the weight becomes so extreme that the boat itself begins to tilt noticeably, reacting to the sudden shift as tons of living weight move across the deck, creating a dangerous imbalance that must be corrected immediately. With crew members redistributing load, adjusting positions, and working together to stabilize everything before it escalates further, because at this level, even a slight miscalculation can have serious consequences. And yet, despite the risk, no one backs down, because this is the moment they've been chasing. The kind of haul that defines an entire expedition. And while some of these moments come from sheer volume, others come from something far more intense: the sudden appearance of a true giant. A single creature so powerful that it disrupts everything, like a massive tuna that refuses to yield, pulling with relentless force, dragging lines, bending equipment, and forcing multiple crew members to work together just to hold on. Or a swordfish that surges forward with explosive energy, turning a controlled operation into a chaotic battle where every second counts. And in the most extreme cases, these creatures don't just resist, they dominate the situation, pulling boats off course, dragging them across the water, forcing crews to adapt instantly or risk losing everything. And these battles are as much mental as they are physical, because maintaining focus under that level of pressure is just as important as strength, knowing when to pull, when to hold, and when to adjust. Because one wrong move can snap the line and end everything instantly. And then there are the rare encounters that go beyond even that, when something completely unexpected emerges from the depths. Something so unusual that it catches the entire crew off guard, like a massive deep-sea creature rising into view. Its size and shape unlike anything they normally deal with, forcing a sudden shift from speed to caution as they carefully bring it aboard, fully aware that this moment may never happen again. And around all of this, the environment itself continues to add pressure, waves crashing, winds picking up, conditions changing without warning, turning an already intense operation into something even more unpredictable. And yet the work continues, because stopping isn't an option when you're this close to something extraordinary. And as exhaustion builds, as muscles strain and focus is tested, the crew pushes through, driven by the knowledge that this is the peak. The moment where everything comes together, where risk meets reward in its purest form, and when it finally ends. When the catch is secured, the giant subdued, or the net emptied after delivering its overwhelming load. There's a brief moment where everything slows, just for a second, as the crew takes in what they've just accomplished. Because these are the moments that define this world, the ones that push limits, test endurance, and prove that no matter how much technology evolves, the ocean will always have the power to challenge, to surprise, and to create scenes so massive, so intense, and so unbelievable that they leave a lasting impression long after the voyage is over. And even after a moment like that, when it seems like nothing could possibly top the intensity they've just experienced, the ocean has a way of delivering one final surge that pushes everything beyond expectation. Because there are times when the pressure doesn't release after the haul instead. It builds even further, as back-to-back opportunities appear, one after another, forcing exhausted crews to keep going without pause, resetting equipment, redeploying nets, and diving straight back into the chaos while their bodies are already at their limits. And this is where endurance becomes the deciding factor, because at this stage, it's no longer just about handling one massive catch. It's about surviving a continuous wave of them, each one as demanding as the last. And in these rare but unforgettable sequences, the ocean seems almost endless in what it offers. With dense schools forming repeatedly beneath the vessel, signals lighting up sonar screens again and again, each one representing another chance at something huge. And instead of slowing down, the operation accelerates. It's becoming more intense with every cycle, as if everything is happening in fast forward, nets dropping faster, winches pulling harder. Crews moving almost automatically through routines they've repeated countless times, but now under extreme fatigue, where every movement requires effort, every decision carries weight, and yet there's no room for error, because the scale of what they're dealing with leaves no margin for mistakes. And when another massive haul rises from the depths, pouring onto the deck in an unstoppable flood, it feels less like a single event and more like part of an overwhelming sequence. A chain reaction of catches so large and so relentless that it becomes difficult to even process what's happening in real time. And in some of the most intense situations, storage fills rapidly, forcing crews to work even faster, organizing, compressing, and preserving the catch to make space for what's coming next. Because stopping now would mean wasting one of the rarest opportunities the ocean can offer, a moment when everything aligns perfectly for maximum yield. And yet, even in the middle of this high-output frenzy, the unpredictability never disappears, because just as quickly as the ocean provides, it can shift. And within minutes, conditions can change, schools can scatter, and what was once a perfect setup can vanish completely, leaving behind nothing but the aftermath of what was just achieved. And that sudden contrast from overwhelming abundance to complete emptiness is what makes these moments so powerful, because it reminds everyone on board that nothing out here is guaranteed. Every success is temporary, every opportunity fleeting, and that's why when these peak moments happen, crews push themselves beyond what seems possible, ignoring fatigue, ignoring discomfort, focusing only on the task in front of them, because they know this window won't stay open for long. And then there are the final surprises. It's the unexpected additions to an already massive haul when something unusual appears among the catch. Something larger, stranger, or more valuable than anything else brought up that day, adding one last layer of intensity to an already unforgettable sequence. And as the operation finally begins to slow, as the last nets are cleared and the final loads are secured, there's a shift in the atmosphere on board. Not a complete stop, but a brief moment of realization, where the crew can finally see the full scale of what they've accomplished. Decks that were once empty now, covered in the result of hours of relentless effort, storage filled to capacity, equipment pushed to its limits but still holding. And in that moment, the exhaustion becomes real. But so does the satisfaction. Because what they've just experienced isn't something that happens every day. It's the kind of peak that defines an entire journey. It's the kind of moment that fishermen remember long after they return to shore. And yet, even as everything settles, one thing remains certain: the ocean is never truly finished. It's always moving, always changing, always holding back something else beneath the surface, waiting for the next crew, the next trip, the next moment when everything aligns again, and when it does, the cycle will repeat, just as intense, just as unpredictable, and just as unbelievable as before. After everything you've just witnessed, the massive hauls, the violent struggles, the endless cycles of effort and reward, it becomes clear that fishing at this level is something far beyond what most people imagine. Because this isn't just about catching fish. It's about stepping into one of the most unpredictable environments on Earth and facing whatever it decides to reveal. Day after day, trip after trip, never knowing whether the next moment will bring a record-breaking catch or nothing at all. And that uncertainty is exactly what drives everything forward, because out here there are no guarantees. It's only opportunities that appear and disappear in an instant. And the crews who succeed are the ones who are ready to act the second those opportunities show themselves, using everything they have: technology, experience, strength, and coordination to turn a fleeting moment into something real, something massive, something worth the risk. And when you look at the scale of it all, from nets hauling in tens of tons in minutes to single creatures powerful enough to drag entire boats, it's hard to believe that all of this is happening constantly across oceans around the world, often unseen, often undocumented, yet shaping industries, supporting livelihoods, and feeding millions of people every single day. And behind every one of those moments is a story of effort, of pressure, of pushing beyond limits in conditions that are constantly changing, constantly challenging, and never fully under control, because no matter how advanced the equipment becomes, no matter how experienced the crews are, the ocean always holds the upper hand, always keeping something hidden beneath the surface, something unexpected, something that can turn an ordinary trip into an unforgettable one in seconds. And that's what makes these moments so powerful, because they're real, unscripted, and impossible to fully predict. And maybe that's why they're so captivating to watch, because they show a side of the world that's raw, intense, and completely driven by forces much larger than ourselves. And as you've seen, whether it's the overwhelming surge of a net filled to its limit, the glowing fleets lighting up the night sea, or the sudden appearance of a giant rising from the depths, Each moment carries its own kind of impact, its own kind of story. And now the question turns to you. Which of these moments stood out the most? Which one made you stop and think, that can't be real? Because out of everything you've just seen, there's always that one scene that stays in your mind. If you thought this was intense, just wait. Because there are always more moments like these happening somewhere out there right now, waiting to be discovered, waiting to be captured, and waiting to prove once again that the ocean is far more powerful, far more mysterious, and far more unbelievable than we ever expect. So if you want to see more of these incredible stories, make sure to stay tuned. Because this is only a small glimpse into a world that never stops challenging, and never stops delivering moments that feel almost impossible to believe.